What's up, storytellers? Welcome back to the One Clear Story podcast. My name is Alex Street, and I am here to help make storytelling simple for you and your business. In whatever context you want to elevate your storytelling, whether it's around the dinner table, or it's on the stage, or it's in the next board meeting, this podcast is here to help make it all just so much more simple for you. Because there's so many frameworks out there around storytelling, including my own, The Story Arc, which, by the way, is now trademarked. Come on! That's exciting. But ultimately, this is supposed to be some short, simple, quick, focused conversations around what makes storytelling stand out and how can you elevate and use your one clear story to make lasting impact every time that you speak. And today, we want to talk about the details of storytelling. What details do I share in a story? And what details do I lose or leave out? When should I? When's the best time to really focus on the details? And when do I stay vague? Oh man, you and I both know that this is where stories will mostly lose people. When you have someone telling a story and they start out really strong, they're like, I gotta tell you what happened when I went to New York last weekend. And you're like, cool, what happened in New York? Your mind immediately starts going to all these different places. Did you see Times Square? Was there some crime? Did you see celebrities? Were you at Taylor's wedding? Did you see a baseball game, Broadway show, up the Empire State Building? What happened in New York? Just with that, your mind has already gone all these different places and you're waiting for this person to fill in the gaps. This is the beauty of storytelling. By simply inviting someone in, I've got to tell you what happened. There's an excitement, there's an openness. You've opened this loop. And then, dun, 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 they get lost in the details. Well, we got there on Friday night, and I got to tell you, we got to this hotel, and it was real grungy, and we didn't feel safe there. And I mean, we slept anyways. It was me and my friends. We slept. The bed wasn't very comfortable, but there was 2 people on the bed, and then 3 of us slept on the floor. We had actually 5 people in there, even though we only booked 4 people. You're bored already, right? You're listening to this. You're like, what happened in New York? And you're a polite listener, and so you keep looking and listening and nodding along, and yet you are like, what happened? Because it always feels like setup. And at some point, they might find you in that space and see that you're zoning off, and then if they're aware, then they'll say, okay, well, long story short, we were bored that Saturday morning and looking for something to do before we went to the baseball game. And so we're sitting on the bed and we're tossing a ball back and forth. And then I started looking for my baseball glove, and I didn't know where my baseball glove was. And it was actually my father-in-law's baseball glove. You're bored again, and I'm not making the story shorter. So there's another podcast here where I want to talk about this idea of long story short and how it rarely leads to a shorter story. And we'll get there. We'll focus on that in another one. But I think we're kind of on that same path today as we talk about, so what details do we share? Because the point of the story was that you found $1,000 in a hotel room that was under a fridge, and then you spent it with your friends, and what an exciting moment that was. But you spent all this time leading up to that and all the things that happened before that moment that you've lost your audience before you even get to the exciting part. So there's another storytelling trick here of just tell us what happened and then you can lead up to it. You'll never guess what happened in New York last weekend. What happened? Well, we found $1,000 in the hotel room. Holy cow. How did that happen? Now you can fill in what happened before that. But there's still lots of open space there around what details do you share? And when is it worth it to share those details, and how do you make those matter the most? So I want to give you 2 words today that will help you know that this is a time to share details, or at least to know that I'm making these details matter. And that's what's really going to matter here when you're telling these stories, because there's so many details you could share about any given moment of your life. As good as your memory is, you can tell us everything. You can tell us the smells and the colors and the sounds that were there, but does any of it matter? Sometimes, sometimes not. As you become a better storyteller, you start to pick those up and you become known as someone who really paints the picture, or someone who, kind of glosses over some details to get to the moment. And that's up to you. But what isn't up to you is these two words, feelings and moments. If you want to know what details do I share, whether I'm speaking on Instagram or I'm talking around the dinner table or at a boardroom on stage, focus on feelings and moments, the details of those together. This is the perfect pairing, okay? When it comes to details in storytelling, feelings and moments are the perfect pairing, like a juicy steak and a red wine. They just have to go together. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Feelings are, of course, the emotions that you actually felt in a moment. So when you're in New York, you can tell us all about the situation, what was going on, the things that were happening around you. But what I really want to know is how you felt during that moment. I was so scared. I was so worried that I wouldn't find this baseball glove that didn't even belong to me, and I started to panic. Have you ever been like that? You get somewhere and then you lose something that you're sure that you had, but then even worse than that, it doesn't belong to you. Now you've lost something that doesn't belong to you. It's like the kid from The Sandlot who loses the ball that's signed by Babe Ruth and it gets eaten by the dog over the fence. Oh, what a terrible, terrible feeling of guilt and frustration. That's what I was feeling in that moment. So now, I'm sure that you just leaned in. You think about these stories and you've heard these stories and you're like, man, that person's such a good storyteller and they make it feel so captivating. Part of that, I am certain, is that they are dropping some very key and important feelings that were in that moment. Not just what happened, but how they were feeling as that experience unfolded. And then there's an added element there of actually asking the audience, have you ever felt like that? Because now we get to go, yeah, actually I have felt like that. Oh yeah, and then that makes me think of a moment when I felt like that. And now I'm fully engaged because now I fully know what you're going through because I've drawn myself to my own moment where I felt like that. And the brain is so fascinating how it works, how it can kind of go somewhere else, but then also lean in and want to know completely what was going on in your moment. And the feelings do that. But the feelings aren't enough. So you want to talk about details. What's happening with a lot of people, especially when I see this and I see my clients working through this, you start to share feelings, but it still comes out like a list of feelings, and it feels very vague. There was a time in my life where I felt really lost, alone, anxious, stuck, and you're like, yeah, okay, great. Tell me more. Like I'm going to identify with those feelings. I get that, but they're just words at this point. They're just emotions, and I have to believe that you felt those. But now I want some proof. So that the emotions alone, the feelings alone are helpful and always really drive the emotional weight of a story. And then that question of have you ever felt that helps with emotional transference for your audience so that they lean in and they connect with those feelings, understanding that they felt that as well. But the feelings, it's still too vague. That's not details. So what is the detail? Well, the detail comes with the moment then. Let's talk about moments. Before we pair these things, let's just talk about moments. Because that's what a lot of us are doing. We're thinking of our stories, and then I want you to focus on a moment. Tell me about a moment when things shifted. And so to come back to the New York story, I got to tell you what happened in New York last weekend. And as I unfolded a story as I did earlier, I told you about all these tiny little moments, all these moments and all the details, all the things, but I never actually got to the moment that I wanted you to talk about. So focus on a moment is great. But in that moment, you can tell me all about the size of the bed or the smell in the room or the price of the tickets or whose baseball glove it was you lost or where the money was that you found. You could tell me all those things, but do they matter? They all help me visualize the experience. Of course, the moment, these details in this moment, and this is where people get lost because they're telling all these details and it's good, but I can still get lost in that. It's almost like it's too specific or it's too vague. We were in a hotel room, we were in New York, and we found some money. It's almost too vague, but cool, but too vague to really paint the picture of the story. So with the same thing with the feelings, you can tell me about the moment, but it can still run the risk of being too specific or too vague, and I can't really lean into that. And so you're left wondering, well, what is the right amount of details to share? And I think this is where the perfect pairing comes in. You can make a lot of mistakes when you're talking about feelings, and you can make a lot of mistakes when you're talking about the moment. But when you talk about a moment and a feeling and you pair that together, you've got a level of detail that is delicious to listen to. Let me go into that and focus on this because we've talked about feelings, how important it is to share the feelings, notice the feelings, claim the feelings, talk about that, embrace us or invite us into that and embrace the feelings. We talked about the moment and how you can share those details and you lock and you paint the picture for them. Absolutely. It's so good and so enticing, but bring those together and now you've got the perfect amount of detail in any story, which looks like this. I got to tell you what happened in New York last weekend. Oh, tell me what happened. Well, we were in this hotel room and it was sketchy at best. And we were sitting around waiting for the baseball game to start. And we wanted to play some catch. I couldn't find my glove. In that moment, I felt frustration, fear, and nerves. And everybody started to look around and look for the glove as well because we were all panicking. Then, during that panic, we actually moved something in the room, found some cash, and the whole weekend opened up. The panic disappeared, the joy showed up, and then, you'll never believe it, but the baseball glove was actually just stuffed in the bottom of my bag where I knew it was all along, but just didn't look hard enough the first time. And we had a great, great weekend spending the money that we just found. The details there are minimized in the hotel room. The feelings are clear, and together they help make a very enticing, captivating experience for the listener. So what details should you share? How deep should you go on this? It's really simple. Find your moment and find your feeling. Put those together. Don't merely tell us about the moment because we'll get lost and bored. Don't merely tell us about a list of feelings that you had because it'll feel vague and we don't know why it matters. We want the proof of the feelings with the moment, but we want why the moment matters with the feelings, and together it makes the perfect pair of the details to share. And I love that that rhymed. And I really, really care. So I hope this is helpful for you to think about, okay, so what details do I share? How far should I go into the details? Because it is true. We want that. We need more of that. If you're feeling like your stories are weak or even, your messaging as you show up, you're like, yeah, it's not really landing. It's probably because we need more specifics. We need something more practical. We need something that not only makes us care about the moment, but makes why we care matter. So the feelings and the moments, this perfect pairing, try simply adding that into your storytelling and seeing how all of a sudden the need for all of those details goes away because you've just helped us feel what you were feeling in the moment. And the moment matters more than ever. All right. This has been another episode of the One Clear Story podcast. I hope it's been helpful for you. And if you want any more help on your storytelling, I mean, you know where to find me on Instagram at Street Says, on the internet, alexstreet.ca. And you can go there for more coaching on how to tell better stories as a speaker and as a brand. And until next time, go tell a better story. See you later. Bye.